It's a Camaro RS that was developed especially for police service. It's equipped with a 350 cubic inch Corvette engine, so it is a very, very high performance automobile and well suited to the job.
Motoring 93 is brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, one tough motor oil. And Midas, your under-the-car specialists for imports and domestics.
Police cars, when you're in trouble and in need of help, they're a wonderful sight. Now, if you see one in your rearview mirror with its lights on, that's another story. But either way, police cars are a major market for car manufacturers. I mean, here in metropolitan Toronto alone, they have over 1,000 vehicles on the road. But what do police look for when they buy a car? Well, let's find out. Our first stop is at the St. Thomas Ford Assembly Plant in Talbotville, Ontario, home to the Crown Victoria. Now, these vehicles coming off the line are not for the public. These Crown Victorias are special orders from special customers.
Here's your stabilizer. Here's your heavy-duty shocks. We have a new parking brake mechanism because you have to have that with the disc brakes per se. And we're braking on the outside of the rotor.
Some of these customers were at the plant to check out their new cruisers.
We have just, as of the 21st of February, we started building police cars. We've introduced them again after about a year's absence from the scene. We have the city of Kansas City, Missouri, and the state of Kansas. They have two pilot, each has one pilot that we are going to review today, and the object is to verify the wants of the customer, actually what he ordered and what he's getting coming out the back door here at the plant. And we go through all the specifications that he has requested and required, and then we check them off against our sheets, and we then get the word to build.
Well, basically, our needs haven't changed over the last 10 years. We're primarily a rural operation of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. We look for a full-size vehicle, rear-wheel drive, with plenty of room to carry equipment. The full-size cars are safe. We do a lot of high-speed driving. And we're looking for a good quality car with a police package. The engine is durable, the frame's durable, good brakes. We're looking for a good, safe car for our people to drive. And manufacturers, Ford and the other manufacturer, make a good quality police car.
This year we have one engine only, and we have a 4.6 liter that we do have adapted for the police package. It's got a different calibration, got dual exhaust, and with this calibration and the AODE transmission, this develops 210 horsepower.
We need speed, but we don't need an excessive amount of speed. I say most of the police cars will run 120 or maybe slightly better. We look for rapid acceleration, which the newer cars have. When you start to turn around to chase a speeder on the interstate highway, you want to get him as fast as you can, because sometimes you can be out there chasing a 90-mile-an-hour car down for 10 or 12 miles if you don't have rapid acceleration. Today's cars, we can catch them in a mile or so. The less time, the less high-speed driving you're out there pursuing these people, the safer it is.
It is the shot in the arm that Ford and the St. Thomas Assembly Plant needed. The economy, as you're aware, that probably 15% of the automobiles that we produce here are sold in Canada. The other 85% go into the States. With that, we have had the economy in the States has been very soft too. With this coming in, this was the shot in the arm that we needed. It's going to increase it. We feel that there will be probably no more downtime. We feel that approximately 1/3 of our production will be police cars.
Let's now meet the country's newest and fastest police cruiser, and it's on the streets of Toronto.
Okay, it's a Camaro RS that was developed especially for police service. The police departments have felt over the years that they needed a car with some pursuit capabilities that was beyond the regular Caprice that we sell for police service. It's equipped with a 350 cubic inch Corvette engine producing about 240 horsepower, and with all the brake and handling equipment that is installed on our racing Camaros. So it is a very, very high performance automobile and well suited to the job. The brakes are much larger, both front and rear, than the regular Z28 Camaro, and the springs and shocks are heavier than the regular Z28 Camaro, so that the performance, handling, and braking is superior to the regular car. There's controls in place to prevent other than police departments ordering this vehicle.
Well, this vehicle, because of what it's capable of doing, makes it as an excellent deterrent for your high speeders in Toronto, in this case the Gardner and the Don Valley, to stop people that normally you couldn't with other police vehicles because of the performance wasn't there or the handling.
What's the reaction been from other motorists?
Well, several motorists usually come up beside you and give you a thumbs up or a wave, and then they just continue on their way. So it sounds like they're impressed with the car.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
This week on Test Drive, we look at one of our long-term testers. This is the baby Infiniti, the G20, a car that has given the Infiniti dealers a nice entry-level vehicle that complements the wonderful Q45 and recently introduced J30 very nicely. Under the hood is a free-revving 2-litre twin-cam engine that produces 140 horsepower and 132 pounds-feet of torque. As with most multi-valve engines, access to the power is placed fairly high up the rev range, but unlike most multi-valvers, this one does not protest when you venture up there. In fact, the engine sings a sweet song all the way to the red line. On the skid pad, we required a scant 8 seconds to eclipse the 100k mark. Not too shabby at all. Matched with this engine is a 5-speed manual transmission. This unit is slick and smooth to the feel. Add that to the wonderfully progressive clutch that is feather light, and you have a car that is very easy to drive. Having said all of that, the thing that makes this transmission special is the viscous limited slip differential. This type of technology on a front-wheel drive car is rare and still Nissan's exclusive domain. The advantage a front-wheel drive car enjoys over a rear-wheel drive in bad weather is well known. Adding the limited slip diff to a front driver is almost as big an advantage again. It also improves the handling characteristics by giving the car a more predictable response on slippery roads. One of the pleasant surprises I got out of this vehicle was the fact that it handled the pylon test exceptionally well. There was very little understeer, very little body roll, and yet out on the open road the car proved to be very comfortable. The other thing Nissan get is a gold star for putting Michelin X GT-H4s on this car. It ensures that your driver knows exactly what's happening between the tyre and road interface. A job very well done. The reason for this stellar showing is the advanced multi-link front suspension. It is similar to the setup found on the Q45 and Nissan 300ZX. Combine this with the parallel link in the rear with sway bars at both ends and you have a wonderful setup. Out on the road, the ride proves to be as supple and comfortable as it is competent. Anti-lock brakes are standard equipment on the G20. During the brake test, we required 118 feet to stop from 80k. As is usual with anti-lock brakes, the stops were straight and smooth and, in a word, flawless. A good job well done. Ergonomically, the G20 is very well laid out indeed. This wonderful sounding radio sits above the heater controls where it should do. The cruise control function is mounted on the right side of the steering wheel, meaning it falls very readily to hand. Both of these stalks on either side of the steering column you can operate with your hands on the wheel. And the dashboard, being analog, is comprehensive, very easy to read at a quick glance. However, in amongst all of this wonderful stuff, they've stuck the power door lock button down by the parking brake instead of on the door where it should be.
Why they did that is your guess.
To ensure the driver stays put when you begin to push the car, the G20 features deeply contoured front seats, with the driver getting adjustments for seat base, rake angle and lumbar support. The perfect positioning of the dead pedal also helps things immensely. In the rear, legroom is at a premium, especially if you have a tall driver in front of you. That said, you can seat 2 in relative comfort. 3 would be at a dead loss.
One of the key elements in car design has to be the trunk and how easy it is to use. Now on this G20, Nissan have employed some very clever hinges that allows them to get the deck lid up and out of the way. They've provided you with bumper level access to a nice wide flat floor, and it'll carry a lot of junk in there, believe me. However, they've missed on one very important item. There's no split folding rear seats, not even a ski pass-through behind the center armrest. Now in today's market, consumers like the versatility that that sort of option gives them. The sooner Nissan realize this, the better for all concerned.
Being a near luxury car, the G20 comes loaded with all the usual power options like mirrors, windows and a power moonroof. However, located on the underside of the armrest are power releases for the trunk and fuel door.
Infiniti G20 has got an awful lot of endearing qualities. It's quick, it handles very well, heck, it's even got Nissan's award-winning limited slip diff built into the transaxle, and it's difficult to quibble over price. However, the fact that it doesn't have a driver's side airbag is going to haunt them.
Next week on Test Drive, we take a look at one of Lee Iacocca's home runs.
As I mentioned earlier, they have over 1,000 patrol cars on the road here in metropolitan Toronto. They have 3 garages to do the servicing, and they tell me approximately every 5,000 kilometers the cars go in for service, which for some of these vehicles could mean every week, which certainly keeps their mechanics busy. Speaking of busy mechanics, let's go to our Motoring 93 garage and join Bill Gardner.
Well, Brad, while you're talking about guys in the crime business, I want to talk about the grime business, dust and dirt. Now, you may not encounter quite as much dirt as this fellow does in a week. He's in the construction business. But sooner or later, your vehicle could ingest an awful lot of dirt. And it's the job of the filters to trap that dirt and prevent it from damaging the expensive machinery. We want to look at those filters this week and talk about the distinctly different locations and configuration of the filters between a carbureted vehicle and a fuel-injected vehicle. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with the look of some of these filters. For example, this spin-on oil filter is common to just about all of today's cars. It's a metal canister. It's threaded right there where it turns onto the engine. There's the seal that seals the oil pressure into it. And it's a pleated paper filter media down inside this canister. And this is a throwaway type of a deal. Now, if you're old enough to remember some of those Chevys out of the 60s, you may remember that they had a cartridge-type filter, and you actually washed out and reused the metal canister. Well, they've gone back to a different type of cartridge filter now in some vehicles. If you've got a 4-cylinder GM 2.5 liter late model, you may find a cartridge-type filter like this, but you won't find it easily. I'll tell you, it's actually buried inside the engine oil pan. You have to take a large drain nut, just slightly bigger than this, off the bottom of the oil pan, and out plops this filter. You just tug on it here. Now this is a little bit easier to recycle because you don't have all that metal. Moving along to fuel filters, here's the one used on most of today's fuel-injected vehicles. It's a canister type, a metal type filter with threaded ends. This has got to withstand fuel pressure anywhere from 10 or 12 psi on some models to as much as 40 psi on others. So it has to be very well made. And it also has to filter an awful lot of fuel because a lot of fuel is bypassed as a cooling loop. So that filter has to be changed quite frequently on fuel-injected vehicles to make sure that you don't contaminate your injectors. Now, if you've got an older vehicle with a carburetor, you'll probably find a filter very similar to that, and it's usually located on a fitting right at the fuel inlet of the carburetor. Just a small thing. It's only worth a couple of dollars as compared to about 15 or 20 for this one. Now, the crankcase filter is another one that you're likely going to find somewhere around the air cleaner assembly. This is an older style here that clips into the side of the air cleaner. It's a gauze type of an element, and it filters air that enters the crankcase system. The PCV system of the engine has to ingest a certain amount of air, and it needs to be filtered. Now here's another style on the newer cars. Same type of a gauze filter media, it's just in a plastic housing. Now, Air filters have also changed for a number of reasons too, most of them packaging constraints. There's the new style that you'll find in a lot of fuel-injected vehicles. It's pleated paper, and it might be located up in the fender in a housing just for packaging purposes. In a lot of cases, there isn't room for it where the carburetor used to be. Now, this one that I'm wearing on my head is the traditional type of air filter that most carbureted cars have, and some fuel-injected as well. But it has to sit up on top of the engine, so in a lot of cases, there just isn't room. Now, this is one that you could change yourself and service, and there's a few things that you should know about it. After you remove the wing nut or open up that filter housing, you want to make sure that all the dirt and dust is on the outboard side of the filter. If you wipe your finger inboard of this filter and come up with any dust or grit, you've got either a poor fitting filter or a poor quality filter. So that's something you should check out, and we find at least a vehicle a week coming into our shop these days with a filter that's the wrong height, wrong diameter, or poor quality, and it's just not doing the job. And if it's in the case of an air filter, by the time you find out that that filter was no good, you've probably ruined the engine. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 93.
Corn. It's a favorite treat at dinner tables across the country, and it's also becoming a favorite when filling up at the gas station. More than 20 stations in southwestern Ontario are now selling ethanol fuel. The fuel is regular gasoline to which ethanol has been added. The ethanol is produced by fermentation of a renewable resource, like corn.
The main reason for using it would be the benefit to the environment by reduced carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide emissions, as well as the benefit to agriculture, meaning the use of Ontario corn in the production of the alcohol product. As far as vehicles that can use it, any vehicle manufactured today can use the product. The major vehicle manufacturers will warranty the vehicle using alcohol products in concentrations up to 10% in gasolines. Currently, we're only marketing the product as a mid-grade and premium blend, which limits the volume of the product being marketed. Once we have that regular unleaded blend available, we'll see that market expand.
With the racing season now over, drivers and teams are making plans for next year. One driver who's hoping for big things in 1993 is Catherine "Cat" Teasdale. Although she drove in only 2 Indy light races this year, the season was a big success. Sponsorship is the name of the game, and Teasdale found herself a new sponsor in Midas, Canada.
When we met Catherine, we were quite intrigued with her professionalism, and of course being a woman in a male-dominated sport is unique, and Midas has a lot of customers, both men and women. We felt that Catherine would be a good spokesperson for us, especially with the 2 major events we have here in Canada, both in Toronto and Vancouver. So we were really intrigued with the idea, and we said, let's go for it.
About a half-inch off the ground.
Like most drivers, a big part of Cat Teasdale's job is not just driving the car, but talking to sponsors.
The main thing in this sport is money. Unlike playing baseball, where there's AAA and you come up through the ranks and you play T-ball when you're a little kid, and then you get picked up along the way and get signed to a multi-million-dollar contract now is commonplace. This sport is very, very different in that everyone from Ayrton Senna to Roger Penske's guys with Rick Mears and Emerson Fittipaldi to Catherine Teasdale, we all bring money along with us. People usually, in some cases, with this higher level, approach the drivers. But most of the time, it's us looking for the sponsors, talking with sponsors, and putting together a really strong program that will help them be able to sell their product or their service through us, through our personalities, through all the work that we do. That will enable them to be able to get to the level that they want to through IndyCar advertising.
I'd met Catherine last year in Las Vegas at a test that the series was having that we were involved with, and met her there, and then we just kind of kept in touch. She had expressed interest in wanting to do the series, and was able to put together some backing, and we'd talked off and on of somebody we wanted to work with, and it's all come together. Unfortunately, just a limited season this year, but hopefully full-time next year. You have to be able to entertain the sponsors, also be able to drive a race car, and she can do both.
My business, my sales calls are out there talking with the different sponsors and whatnot, just like someone else is out selling a product, I'm selling myself. So hopefully it'll continue along the same path as it's been going. We're hoping with Midas to be racing in this series next year for the full season, and then move into IndyCars in the next season or the season after that. So we'll keep our fingers and toes crossed on it.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns fuses. Now, not so many years ago, we'd have been laying underneath the floor, looking up underneath the dash, trying to find the fuse panel. But many of today's cars have the fuse panel located in the glove box or somewhere up around the dashboard of the car. Now, I'm using a test light to probe these fuses, and a bad one would show up one side hot, the other side dead. Now, what you should do is familiarize yourself, make a dry run of changing one of these fuses and checking them, because you may need a special tool, something like this, to help you pull them out of the fuse cavity. This one clips onto the fuse and helps you pull it out. And you want to familiarize yourself with what constitutes a good and bad fuse. You can see the fuse ribbon right there. It's all intact and in one piece. This is a good fuse. If it was burned out, there'd be a gap in that fuse. So do a dry run, make sure that you understand what's required, and take stock of which fuses your car uses. Keep some spares in the glove box. That's your Midas tip of the week.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
I live in the province of Ontario, and I'm almost ashamed to admit it. Our provincial government has started yet another ill-advised campaign to try and enforce unenforceable speed limits. The latest scam is a series of signs posted up on the 401 freeway posting how much fine you're going to get for going certain amounts over the limit. 100 kilometers an hour, no dollars. 120 kilometers an hour, $95. 135 kilometers an hour, $217. What is this, a speed tax? How fast do you want to go? How much are you prepared to pay? Now, the real irony is that this particular stretch of 401 is statistically the most dangerous part of the entire road. You might think this makes sense, but a coroner's inquest held a couple of years ago showed that the majority of fatal accidents on this piece of road were caused by a car dropping two wheels off the shoulder. The driver overcorrects, goes into the median strip and rolls over. And most of those accidents were happening below the speed limit. Now, the Ministry of Transportation has just finished spending millions of dollars erecting concrete median barriers on this bit of road and paving the shoulders to prevent this type of crash. But now they put up these stupid speed limit signs when their own studies show that speed isn't the issue. Now, if the sign said, drivers, take a break after every 2 hours, that'd make some sense, because that's the safety issue involved here. Now, I'd like to know the name of the bureaucrat who signed that requisition order to put these stupid signs up. I'd also like to know how much money, my tax money, went into these dumb signs. Now, if there's any moles in the provincial government who want to tell me the name of this person or the amount of money spent, write to me in care of Motoring 93 in care of TSN. I guarantee your anonymity. Meanwhile, we can maybe bring some sanity to the traffic safety situation in this country. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, police forces are not only a good market for car manufacturers, but motorcycles also. They've got about 125 bikes on the Toronto police force. Along with some BMWs, they drive these 1200cc Harley Davidsons. Now, they're not just delivered and then customized, they are manufactured as police specials. And they tell me they're fast. And who am I to argue? That's it for now. We'll see you next week for more stories about motorcycles, cars, and the people who drive them.
Motoring 93 has been brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, One Tough Motor Oil, and Midas, your under-the-car specialists for imports and domestics.